Hello ladies and gentlemen, Xcentora here, and welcome back to another YouTube video. Now I hope all of you are doing well, as I am as usual, and in today's video I'll be showing you guys some of the worst things to do in infinite flight, or basically what not to do in infinite flight. Now there are quite a few people that do make some silly mistakes, myself is also included in that list, and we haven't used China's Southern Throttle, so we use that. And yeah, myself, I am included in that list because there are definitely stuff which I have done in infinite flight as well before, that you just really shouldn't do to try and maintain, an extra bit of realism. Now, there are a few important things to keep note. Now, also, if you are new here, please do make sure you like and subscribe, because all the support that everyone shows me does mean a lot. And I thought I'd let you guys know that I actually released a YouTube Shorts this morning. I'm just testing it out to see how it goes, but if anyone could let me know what they think of it, it would mean quite a lot to me, just some positive feedback for everyone. So what should you not do in infinite flight? Now there are quite a few things you should and shouldn't do in infinite flight, and I think some of the main ones do apply to the servers with regards to expert server and of course training server. Casual server is pretty much a bit of a free-for-all, you can sort of do what you want on there, but we will be discussing mainly today what not to do within regards to expert server. Now I think one of the main things to not do is messing up starting up the aircraft. So you always want to have your gates and all that connected here, but lights are very important. So by lights I mean this. Now when people are boarding, I tend to have my seatbelts and my non-smoking lights on, and I think that's a very important thing to have on. Just make sure that you have them always switched on until takeoff at least. And once you're in the cockpit, make sure your nav lights are on. Now, that's quite simple, that's quite a straightforward feature, and not many people really get that wrong. Make sure to never have your strobes or landing lights on, as demonstrated here, although they're not really on, and make sure they are never on whilst taxiing or at the gate. You only put landing lights on when you're on the runway or in the air below 10,000 feet as an aircraft. Now, I do notice some people have been taxiing with strobes. I think it's a bit of a red area because I think some people consider them as taxi lights, because we don't actually have taxi lights in infinite flight. But what I'm going to say, which is what I do, I might be wrong, but it's what I do, and I never have my my strobe lights on when taxiing to a runway. Now, once you're all pushed back, so we might as well just do a pushback quickly. Once you're all pushed back, you only turn your beacon lights on when you start your engine. However, we are going to start an engine on pushback, so that gives us the right to put on a beacon, and we haven't actually started up the aircraft as well, so you will obviously need the aircraft started up. That's one of these buttons here, the main battery, APU on. And the APU as well is another thing that pilots just don't always use in infinite flight. And I think it's very important to make sure you use your APU in infinite flight, because the auxiliary power unit only goes on when you are, it only goes on when your engines are off or after you've landed. Now, we're going to head over to casual server for this, and I'm going to show you what not to do. And so we're just going to spawn at one of these airports. We'll go to Gatwick because hopefully there'll be one or two aircraft there. Okay, there aren't, but that's alright, and we'll just spawn in the 757 again on casual server. Now, this is what upsets many pilots. Now, one of the main things you shouldn't do is skip the queues. Now, you'll see that at some airports, there are pilots which are just queuing to wait to take off, never go through anyone's plane. So driving through other pilots' planes is a big no-no. That is something you must not do. So we are actually going to auto start the aircraft, and this is exactly just what not to do in infinite flight. So the first thing is this. So many people do this, like they don't push back or anything, and then they fail, and then they do weird stupid stuff like this, and this is just the worst thing I can see. Just pilots going full throttle like this to taxi straight to the runway. They don't even know what they do, and then they just go straight on, and then they don't have the right lights on or anything. I don't know if our lights are on from the auto start. Look, got the nav and the beacon, and then they just go straight past here and onto the runways. Now, I'm going to slow down hopefully in time to reach. We're going fast to reverse thrust. Now, as a pilot, you must always, when approaching the runway, so I'll just show you guys what you should do. So you approach the runway like this, nice and slowly, at a decent taxi speed, and you're going to stop at the hold short line. Now, I used to think that's where the gears start, but I've been told by a few people that the nose is not meant to cross the hold short line. That's actually quite a good stop there. So the nose of the aircraft shouldn't cross the hold short line. Now I'm not too sure with some airports which one the hold short line is, because they do have about 2 of them, for example here. Now I'm sure Captain Joe has explained it to you, but I'm not too sure what the difference is between those 2 hold short lines. Again, using ATC, people don't use ATC enough, or they just use the wrong stuff, like just spamming the chat like this, and and doing random stuff. Don't do stuff like this, it's just wrong. Okay, so what you want to do is like this. You use takeoff, runway 26 left, departing, and then let's imagine we're going, let's go south. You press depart in south, and then your flaps will obviously be down already by then, and then as you enter onto the runway, strobes and landing lights then come on. Now that is very important. Make sure your strobes and landing lights are only on when active on the runway, and while the aircraft is on the runway and in flight, your strobes must always be on. Make sure your strobes never turn off. That is just a general fact there. Make sure your strobes are always on. Now, another thing pilots also do on the runways is go straight to 100% throttle. You don't do this. Now, for a start, the aircraft loses control. But when taking off, what I tend to do, I can't get control, there we go. What I tend to do is I have it on about 60%, so I go 40, then up to 60. Then we reach about 100 knots and I push it up to about 80. Now you see the M1 right on the left of gear. You never want that to exceed 100%. Now we are at our rotate speed, so I will just very quickly rotate there. And that was a really bad takeoff because I was trying to explain with speeds. Now the next thing I normally do here is I go straight onto autopilot once I get happy with my vertical speed. Now you never want to exceed 240 knots below 10,000 feet. And then you can change it after that. Now there is another aircraft here as well, just a chill A380 there. So you never want to exceed, and he's got a flight plan, wow. You never want to exceed 240 knots, really, below 10,000 feet. I know the limit's 250, but I tend to stay below it just to avoid speeding violations. And also, when you are above 10,000 feet, you don't really want to go above 280. Because when you're at cruise, really 290 is a push. I normally up 283 is what I have. Obviously we can't have that right now. I just realised we're on training casual server. You can't have that. But yeah, it's just worth noting that you don't want your speeds to exceed you don't really want the wrong speeds. Now we're going to go back here and we're going to go onto our landing. So hopefully, yeah, EGGK, we'll go into solo. Now with landing, so many pilots, they don't aim for the right bit of the runway. They don't quite use their rudders. Now using your rudders is very important. So we are here, but I will go now to a short final. So we're going to short final. And you can see we got a bit of crosswind here conveniently actually. And what you want to do is you want to get the little circle central to the runway, and then when we're about to land, we're gonna use our rudder a little bit. That was a really bad use of it. And now, there we go. And that was just a little crosswind landing. And then you need to use your rudder to stay onto the runway. So many pilots just don't use their rudders in infinite flight, and it is well, it's not annoying, it's just like they just end up doing stuff like this, and once they land, end up going all the way off the runway. Have I just taken off at like 80 knots? What are these winds? And then pilots just do stupid stuff like this and go vertical. You don't really need to do that unless you're making a YouTube video like this. So, simple stuff like that, pilots just are not doing very often in infinite flight. Now, if you do agree with me on some of these points, do let me know down below. I've just tried to show you guys some of the main things not to do in infinite flight. Stuff like this, while sitting on the runway, just make sure if you're an online server, make sure you're always using air traffic control. That is a must, because if you do not use air traffic control, other pilots nearby you will not know what to be doing or using. And you can see again on the runway, make sure you're using the right lights at the right time. Now, if you would like some more in-depth information on this, I'm pretty sure the InfoFlight YouTube channel will have probably more stuff to use, and they might have a few better stuff to say, because they sort of run the servers and they'll ban you on expert and training normally if you don't follow the correct procedures. Again, that's not meant to scare you, but sometimes they do use the wrong procedures, and it does unfortunately end up in you getting banned because you put the wrong lights on or you've gone through another aircraft. But if you didn't find this video helpful, please let me know down below, and like and subscribe again if you're new. But other than that, I will see you in my next video. Good night.
Find your way.